Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome. It's Monday, and we're here for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I had a few little technical issues here at the beginning. So do me a huge favor before we get things rolling. Hit me up in the comments and let me know you can hear me, see me okay. I just want to do a quick tech check. I don't want to waste everybody's time if there's a tech problem. All right. But here's the good news. Assuming the tech's working, then we're going to be doing a Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I call this an Ask Me Anything session, which means if you have questions about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, or you have questions about startup or sales or marketing or scaling your business as it relates particularly to freight brokerage, okay? That's why we're here today. I know a lot of you join me because you're new to the business or you're just kind of doing some research and trying to figure out if it's the right business for you. Well, the good news is you're in the right place. I do these lives every Monday at noon, and that's what we're going to do today. So do me a huge favor. Hit me up and let me know that everything's good. All right, sweet. Good feedback from everybody. Now, in the comment box, hit me up with the city and state you're logging in from. I'll give some shout outs. So this is the agenda. Really, really simple. You guys hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. We'll do some shout outs. By then, everybody will be ready to roll, and we'll jump into the live Q&A. Hold your questions until I'm ready, till I prompt you, till I tell you go, okay? Because they will get lost in the feed, okay? So thank you for joining me. Appreciate you guys being here. Again, it's Monday, September 29th. Time is flying. It's going to be snowing soon, unfortunately. But yeah, so we're in the Buffalo area. We're right in the thralls of fall. The colors are changing. It's beautiful. Some of you may or may not have heard, we got a new puppy. So I'm in the middle of getting that situated. That's been a really interesting week. And I'll probably share more about him as time goes on. He's a Great Dane. He's 10 weeks old. His name is King George Edward Brown. So that's what I've been busy with. That's part of the reason why I don't think I did a live last week. And I promised I would get back on here this week for a live Q&A. So hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. We've got Ember from Houston, Texas. Where else? What else we got? We got Eclectic Rose from Western Colorado, Matthew Curtis from Yamhill, Oregon. So thank you for joining me, everybody. We've got a bunch of people that are coming in live. So let's just give them a minute or two, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. Hold tight. Jordan from Naples, welcome. There's a new feature on this. Let's see. It's kind of cool. It says show comments on stage. We'll leave it on for a minute, see what it does. I think it just shows the newest comments. So if you're the next person to comment, I think your comment will come up on screen in the bottom left-hand corner. There it is. Ryan from Kentucky. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Corey, as always, from Billings, Montana. So cool. Awesome. So again, I'm in the Buffalo, New York area, lifelong resident, been here, started my brokerage back in 2003, grew that company to about 80 million a year in sales, sold that company. But I'm also the owner of Freight Broker Bootcamp, which is the most cost-effective and comprehensive online freight broker and freight agent startup program. Put over 10,000 students through that program, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. If you guys are curious about that, you can just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com and check it out, okay? No pressure. But again, we've had over 10,000 students go through that program. Many of those students have went on to build 6 and 7 and even 8-figure businesses. So I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of the work that we do. And I think you guys will get great value out of that program if you're looking for some guidance. Now, this is not a coaching program. This is an online course where it's self-paced. You go at your own pace. You do it from home, on the internet, on your phone, wherever you have internet connection. And that's how that works. Okay, so cool. Anthony from Philly, welcome. All right, cool. So we got some people live. There's no time like the present. Maybe this will be a short Q&A, maybe not. Sometimes you guys surprise me. Sometimes, we go the full hour. Sometimes it's only a half an hour. We'll see how many questions you guys have, but that's your cue. If you guys have questions, type them in the chat box, whether that be about freight broker startup, freight agent startup, sales, how to get shippers, negotiating with carriers, finding carriers, sourcing carriers, rating, dispatching, any of these topics, any scaling your freight brokerage, right? Selling your freight brokerage, anything that you guys are really interested in and that is important to you, that's maybe a roadblock or a challenge or a question that's looming over your head, do me a favor, hit me up. That's what this is for. Now, I can't promise that I will have the answer to every single question because I don't know everything. But if I don't know the answer, I'll try to point you in the right direction. Okay. So I hope that helps. Let's see. We got some questions rolling in. Cool. All right, here we go. To watch 2023. What is your honest, critical opinion, pros and cons of auto transport as a niche? Okay. You've asked me to be very transparent, and I will tell you my honest opinion. There are two primary types of auto transport. One is where you're dealing with a commercial business, like an auction or a dealership or an automobile manufacturer or distributor, right? You're dealing on the commercial side where you're dealing with a business. You're hauling cars for them. You're not usually hauling one car at a time. It's usually a car hauler, right? You've all seen them drive down the road. They got the cars stacked up on the back, okay? I think that can be a very viable business. The reason being is because it's a repeat business, meaning if you do a good job, because it's commercial on one load, there's a very good chance you're going to get subsequent loads every day, every week, every month, okay? So that's on the commercial side. Now, on the personal side, where, for example, you're dealing with what we call snowbirds, people that live in the Northeast that relocate down to Florida for the winter, and then they come back up to the Northeast for the summers. That's when you're dealing with a consumer, right? So the challenge there is, number one, finding them, okay, without doing some sort of paid ads. Number two, the lifetime value of that client might be very low. I mean, you might, moving a car from Buffalo to Miami, might be, I don't know, it might be $1,000, $2,000 or something along those lines. I don't know the rates right now because I really didn't really deal heavily in personal car hauling. But yeah, so I mean, you may never see them again, or you might only get one load a year. So the lifetime value of that client is typically very low, okay? And it's hard to find those companies. So let's say you can do one shipment a year for 3 years, and then maybe the customer disappears for whatever reason. So you made $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in gross sales. On the commercial side, one load might be $3,000 or $4,000. So if you did one load a week, you're talking of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in revenue, okay? And that's every year. So I like the commercial side. I'm not personally crazy about the consumer side where you're dealing with people that are relocating, right? Or buying or individual cars that are being moved. So there are a lot of people that do it, and some people are really good at it and make good money doing it. It's just not my personal preference. So I hope that helps. If you got a follow-up, let me know. Luckman, how can we meet in person and go over the benefits and build? Okay. Yeah, I don't do face-to-face in-person trainings. Everything that I do is an online course or an online coaching program, right? So, I don't think it's going to be, if you need face-to-face, one-on-one or face-to-face in a classroom type training, I'm probably not your guy. There are some other people out there that can probably help you. Again, be careful who you work with, vet them carefully, make sure they've really successfully built a real brokerage, right? Something that's significant and has tested the time and not just moved a few loads, right? There are, like every industry, there's some good and bad in every industry. And there's plenty of people out there that'll try to sell you the fact that they're an expert in building freight brokerages when in reality, they've never done it. So just be careful. Verizon, please, how can I make money in Nigeria as to fund my Forex trading account? I have no idea. I don't do Forex. No idea. Focus on freight brokerage. My friend Colby's in the house. Thank you for joining, Colby. Appreciate it. Scott Taylor recently saw an interview with Arkansas Trucking Association official. He stated the trucking industry is in the midst of the worst and longest freight recession in history, and it's only going to get worse. Do you agree? And if so, why? Also, how will it affect brokers, especially startups? Okay. So, I mean, I don't know about the longest recession ever. I know that we've had a downturn. I know that, from the time that I started my freight brokerage till now, we've had 4 or 5 major downturns. Okay. But the thing is, in order to have a downturn, you got to have an upturn, right? Right. So you got to have an upside to every downturn. So what you guys have to understand is that if you look at any industry, I don't care if it's the tech industry, I don't care if it's the oil and gas industry, I don't care if it's what industry it's in. Okay. There's ups, there's downs, there's ups, there's downs. Here's the reality. If you look at freight spend and tonnage over the last 20 years, it trends up. It's not trending down. It's trending up. Now, there are ups and downs throughout that time. So what you have to do is you have to learn to ignore the noise and think long-term, not short-term. Okay? So that's my take on, on the ups and downs. Here's the key. You have to learn how to get clients, how to get shippers, and how to move loads, not only when the economy is booming, but during a downturn, when rates are suppressed, okay? And maybe there's too much capacity, all right? So that's the key to having a mentor and a coach or a program that helps you navigate that, all right? So on to the next part, which is how do I feel about startups? I feel great about startups in this environment. Here's why. Because here's the coolest part about being a broker or an agent. You only need, in order to build a 6-figure income, not 6 figures in revenue, but a 6-figure income, you only need 5 or 10 clients. That's it. You don't need 50, you don't need 100, you don't need 1,000. If you were in the insurance business, in order to make 6 figures, say you were selling, homeowners insurance and car insurance, you would need thousands of clients in order to make 6 figures a year. But you don't need that in the brokerage business. You need 5 or 10. 5 or 10 clients, that's all you need. So the cool part is it's not like you have to go out and build this giant customer acquisition machine in order to make a 6-figure income. Now, if you want to obviously grow to a 7-figure income, or you want to build $100 million brokerage, then obviously you've got to get more clients, right? So that takes longer, and then sometimes that can be a little bit harder, obviously, because you got to be able to repeat that process. But ultimately, the cool part about being a startup is you have very low overhead. I mean, the overhead for a freight brokerage is, we're talking, with your bond and with your phone and with your internet and with your, your basics. I mean, you're under $1,000 a month in expenses. Probably some of you are significantly lower if you have really good credit and you got a really good bond rate. Say you got a broker bond that only costs you $1,000 or $2,000 a year, because that freight broker bond is typically the most expensive part for a freight broker, right? On an annual basis. And load boards, obviously TMS can fit into that too, depending upon how many you have. So the operating cost of a freight brokerage, a startup freight brokerage, is very, very low. So you don't need to hit the ball out of the park. You don't need to hit home runs every day in order to be profitable. If you take, one client doing one small client, just doing one load a day or one load a week, we'll pare it back to one load a week at $200 profit. That's almost $11,000 a year in gross profit from one small client. Okay. And trust me, that's not an average client. I mean, an average client in our brokerage, our average customer, as far as annual revenue went, if you took the average, it was probably a couple $100,000 a year, right? Because there's a lot of small and then a few large. And so you're talking about a couple $100,000 a year, you're talking about $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year in profit, right? From an average client. And that's not a big, you're not talking about Unilever or Nestle or US Steel or some major company. You're talking about companies you probably had never heard of until you start doing business with them. So I think that startups can do extremely well in this environment if they know how to sell. Okay, so that's going to bring me to this. You teed it up, so I'm going to give you the infomercial. I have a program called my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. That is a freight broker sales training and coaching program. It's sold out. You can't enroll right now. But if you want to get on the wait list and get notified when new spots open up, just get on the wait list, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. You'll get notified. That program is where I take that piece of my brain, I transplant it into your head. I teach you my best freight broker sales strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, my entire system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker and has allowed my clients to do tens of millions of dollars in sales for their brokerages. Okay. So again, you need to know how to get clients and how to get shippers in any market conditions. A few years ago, back in 21, 22, right? When there was a lot of demand and rates were up, you could jump out of a plane and land on a shipper, right? It was pretty easy. So the problem is that people built their business around easy and they didn't understand how to do things when the market turned. So you need to be able to have a predictable system for getting clients, whether the market's up or the market's down. That's what I teach. That's how I work. Okay. So I hope that helps. Good question though. Thank you. If you have a follow-up, let me know. I probably went a little deeper than what you thought, but hopefully that helped. Luckman, I'm in Philly and would love to come to location and visit. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I just don't do face-to-face. Everything is virtual. Everything is an online course or a group type of coaching program, which I just talked about, my Sales Accelerator. So yeah, I've been asked many, many times to do live classroom trainings. I'll just be honest with you. It's just not in my lifestyle right now. I have a lot of hobbies. I've got family. I've got all that. And doing live classroom type stuff where you come for 5 days or something like that, and I do a teaching session like that. It's just, to me, leveraging the internet is a much better way to do it. So I don't know why you're adverse to the internet, but that's what I do. Let me just look. Okay. Question, is this a good time to become a broker? Well, it depends on who you ask. I just answered that question. In my personal opinion, I would have zero issues with starting a brokerage now. Now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because your operational cost is very, very low. And the cool part is this. If you just think about it this way, where would you rather join an industry? Would you rather join an industry when it's at its peak and it's about to crash? Or would you rather join an industry when it's towards the bottom and it has pretty much no place to go but up? You tell me. Statistically speaking, where would you rather be? Knowing that you only need to get a few customers in order to generate profit, okay? And then once the market ticks up, you're in a position to take advantage of that upswing. Or would you rather get a few customers at the peak and then during a downturn lose those customers and not know how to get new customers? So, I mean, it's kind of up to you, but that's my analysis of it. Here's the reality. There is no perfect time to start a business. If you look at some of the largest unicorn, multi-billion-dollar companies in the world, they started during recessions, whether that be in the freight business or whether that be in the tech business or whether that be in the consumer products business, whatever it's in. You look at some of those biggest companies and they started during major downturns, during recessions. Okay. So I don't think it's an issue because your overhead is very, very low. It's not like you got to go out there and borrow $1 million in order to start a freight brokerage. Your risk and exposure is very, very low in relation to a normal business. So hope that helps. Okay. Anthony asks, what is the mindset to converse with carriers and shippers as a new broker? The pirate. Okay, gotcha. Language. You're a compassionate person, although the supply chain participants are very rough. What is the mindset to converse? Well, the mindset is this, and I'm going to give you just kind of something that came to my mind here. And this is an overarching theme when you're selling. What most brokers do is they're very transactional. It's all about them. It's all about the money. Okay. That's how most brokers operate. And it is a huge flaw, right? So they're focused on selling, sell, 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 sell. And your prospects and the people on the other side can feel that pressure, and they typically don't respond to it very well. So what happens is you get a lot of objections, you get a lot of no's, and you get very, overwhelmed with the fact that you're not having success, right? Now, if you flip the switch from a mindset perspective and you stop focusing on selling and you start focusing on serving versus selling. Serving is where it's not about you anymore. It's not about how much money you're going to make. It's not about putting too much pressure. It's about finding challenges and issues and problems and serving that client in a way that benefits them. And as a byproduct of that, you as the broker or agent benefit. Okay? So it's really more of a mindset of serving versus selling. So Anthony, I hope that helps. I mean, you asked about mindset and you asked about how to talk to carriers. And this goes for carriers and shippers, by the way. Okay? That same serving versus selling mindset. Brokers are so transactional on both the carrier and the shipper side. It drives me absolutely crazy. So we talk a lot about this in my Sales Accelerator that I mentioned before. So matter of fact, I think this is going to be our third week on Wednesday. It's an 8-week program. So this is going to be our third week. Again, I told you it's sold out, but it's our third week. And we've already talked about some of this in the first couple of weeks. So good question. Thank you, Anthony. Bouncing Bill, do you have a self-guided sales program? I do. But I don't typically sell it. So here's how it started. Let me explain to you what I mean. When I first launched my Sales Accelerator, it was just an online course, meaning it was a self-paced, video-driven online course that taught my entire freight broker sales system. Okay? So it was no coaching. There was online support, but no coaching involved. And so I did that, and a lot of people went through that, and it's a great program. Okay. Amazing feedback. We've had incredible feedback. We're very, very blessed. It's a great program, and it's all online. You can access it through your desktop or through your mobile or whatever you want to do. Okay. It's my entire freight broker sales system. Now, maybe a year into that, I don't know the exact time, maybe a year into it, I decided that I was going to launch a coaching program as a part of it, because I had some people coming to me and say, listen, I don't work well in just an online course. I really need some coaching and mentoring. Will you do that? So I launched a mentoring program that was a coaching program where part of the program was the online course and part of the program was the coaching and mentoring. That's what I call my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator 2.0, right? Which is the next generation of that. The Freight Broker Sales Accelerator was just the course. The Freight Broker Sales Accelerator 2.0 was the course and the live coaching and mentoring, which is now 8 weeks. When I first started out, it was 5 weeks. So I typically don't sell just the online course. I don't know why. I probably should. I have people ask me. I've enrolled some people. I've allowed some people. So, if you, Bouncing Bill, if you want to enroll in that, send an email, or you want more information about that, send an email to support@freightbrokerbootcamp.com, and then just say, in the subject, just say Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, right? And my support staff will forward it over to me. We can have a quick email back and forth, and maybe it's something that we can help you with. Okay. But again, you can't find it online to enroll in it as a standalone course. And the Sales Accelerator 2.0 is really a live coaching and mentoring program that has that as a part of the program. The advantages are the online course is obviously much less expensive. than the coaching program, because the coaching program takes my actual time and energy and resources. I got to be there for a couple hours every week, and I got to do all the preparation. I got to do all the afterwards. So the follow-up. So I hope that helps. But good question. And thank you. Thank you for your interest. Ryan Miller, what industries would you recommend targeting to play defense in a bad economy? Here's the thing. It's not the entire economy that's bad. Not every industry is struggling. Some industries are struggling more than others. Okay. So, it's a really interesting question. I guess I would have to ask, what is your initial target, right? If I don't know your existing niche, it's hard for me to determine how to play defense by adding another niche or by entertaining another niche. So, I think there's a lot of industries. I mean, what you want to look at is, one of the biggest things you're going to find is dependent upon what's the cause of the industry. So say, for example, it's an import issue, which a lot of what we have now, right? If it's an import issue, then obviously you're going to try to focus on things that aren't so import heavy, right? So we've got all the stuff coming, a huge trade deficit from China. So the things that are coming in from China, you want to try to avoid those if we've had a major downturn in those types of items due to tariffs or whatever the cause is, right? So you would want to focus on things that aren't so reliant on those, or aren't so dependent, or aren't so affected by the international trade rules and tariffs. So that's a general rule, but if you're focused on domestic stuff that's manufactured domestically, then I think that you really need to take a close look at it and understand what you're focused on now, and try to reverse engineer it into something that would give you a little bit of a defensible position. I like the way you're thinking, that you're trying to be strategic about the customers you're going after. It's just hard for me to do that in a one-size-fits-all format like this. It would take a much longer conversation for us to really try to figure that out. But it's a cool question, and maybe that's something that one of my Sales Accelerator clients will ask in our upcoming coaching program, and maybe we'll be able to share that. So good question, Ryan. Thank you. Ibrahim, hey, do you know any insurance companies for freight brokers to utilize? One of my customers needs us to have insurance, and I don't know which company to utilize. I don't have an insurance company that we recommend. I know that like Truckstop has, some insurance built into it, some products of insurance. I know there's plenty of them out there. It really depends on the type of insurance you need. If you're talking about contingent cargo, or you're talking about general liability, or you're talking about some other form of insurance that they require, it really depends. But I don't have a company that I specifically work with for contingent cargo. I probably should. I don't know why I don't. In the past, I think we dealt with RMIS, which I think is now owned by Truckstop. So that might be a good place, especially if you have a Truckstop, load board account. It might be an easy shift. Scott asks, on a different subject, I carry insurance for contingent cargo and contingent auto. It's not cheap, especially since I'm financing this business with a military retirement and don't have any customers. I use it as a selling point for my company, showing that I have some skin in the game. Do you recommend keeping the policy? It's costing me around $350 a month. Scott, I don't know your personal financial situation. You gave me a little bit of a description. I think that you should be able to outsell the cost of a $350 insurance, considering it's, 1 to 3 loads, right? You got to move 1 to 3 loads in order to finance that with sales activity. You don't need contingent cargo or contingent auto in order to get clients as a broker. Matter of fact, I didn't have it when I first got started. Many of my clients in the last several years that have started didn't start with contingent cargo or any form of insurance, and they were able to go out and get clients. And then they were able to reinvest some of that money into insurance if they chose. Now, you got to remember, I would say, to be extremely honest with you, I think that the majority of shippers out there do not require contingent cargo or any form of insurance from a broker. You know who does? The large companies, the $1 billion plus companies, right? All the big companies, Nestle, they all require, and they're going to require you to jump through a bunch of hoops, check a bunch of boxes, and go through a pretty stealthy vetting process. Okay. But small companies don't. Small to medium-sized companies, maybe they're $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, $50 million a year in sales. I would say the heavy majority of them don't require any form of insurance. So a lot of it's going to depend on who is your target market, who you're going after, your financial ability to do that. I understand that it's a strain financially, but here's the thing. You only need a few customers before you're financing that, before that's before your operational cost is fully financed. So I said it before, I'll say it again. You should be able to outsell your expenses. Okay. And if you can't, right, and you're into this, if you're into this 6 months and you've been really actively going out there and selling and pressing the flesh and doing a lot of outreach and learning about your customers and serving and focusing on serving, not selling, and you're doing that for 6 months and you're still not moving any freight, something is severely wrong. You're missing something. Okay. That's the reason why I put together the Sales Accelerator. I put the Sales Accelerator together for that exact reason. I had clients that would come back to me and they would say, listen, I've been struggling for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months and I can't get my first shipper. Will you work with me? And of course, I'm not going to work with you one-on-one because I don't do that. So I put this Sales Accelerator, this VIP group program together. Again, if you guys want to get on the wait list, feel free, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. But again, that's why I did it. So I don't know if that helps, Scott, but I'm just, being honest with you. And sometimes, I got to give people a little tough love. And I think that's yours for today. Question from Gary. What have you seen in your professional opinion, main difference in successful broker versus successful broker agents? Do you have any personal professional opinion between the two? Okay. So if you don't have any experience in logistics or you have limited financial resources, start as a freight agent. It is much easier to make money as a freight agent than it is a freight broker. Okay? Because the freight agent is only doing half the job as opposed to a freight broker having to do the whole job. Okay? Freight agents focus on getting clients, serving those clients. That's it. You don't have to worry about software, technology, billing, collections, licensing, bonding, compliance, any of that. Okay? You don't have to worry about any of the back office. You just work on the front. So if you don't have experience or you don't have, a lot of financial resources, you can get started very inexpensively as a freight agent, right? Get a little bit of training on how to, get started. And then from there, some basic load boards and maybe a TMS and you're off to the races. So very low overhead for a freight agent. Now, a freight broker, you're going to need decent credit in order to get your freight broker bond, to get your license. Okay. So you got to have decent credit. That's also, if you have bad credit, start as an agent. Okay. Brokers also need a little bit more financial resources because you got to be able to pay for all those things up front. You need thousands of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. Okay. Which is kind of the agent parallel that I make. To become an agent, you can get started for hundreds of dollars. To become a freight broker, you're going to have to invest thousands of dollars. Okay. Let me see if I can hone in on your question a little bit more. Main difference between successful broker versus successful agent. When I find successful brokers versus successful agents, it depends on what you deem as success, right? But when I look at the difference between agents and brokers, I have a tendency to think of agents as guys that are just trying to make money and successful brokers that are trying to build a real business. Okay. So agents are looking for kind of a way to make money from home. And, if they can make high 5 or 6 figures working from home, that's their goal. Successful brokers, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking to build a 10, 20, 50, $100 million business. Someone like myself who was looking to build a $100 million business and then sell and exit. That's how I started this business. I knew from the very beginning when I started in 2003, we were going to start, scale, and sell the business. Okay. So, those are some of the differences I've noticed. The other thing of successful brokers versus agents, successful brokers learn how to hire and delegate. They learn how to hire a team, build a team, and delegate, versus agents that in many cases can't handle or avoid the hiring and scaling. There's way more solo agents out there than there are solo brokers. Okay. So those are a few of the differences just off the top of my head. I hope it helps. If you got a follow-up, let me know. So just so you guys know, Colby has a extremely successful freight brokerage. Okay. I'm not going to give you the specific details, but it's an 8-figure business. Okay. So he's got a very successful 8-figure business. He's growing, and this is from him. It's a great time to be a broker. A lot of it's in your mind, right? A lot of it's is your mindset. And I know that Colby would agree. Of course, there's always going to be challenges in any market. When rates are up, trucks are tight. When rates are down, trucks are loose. You can still, as a broker, make a 15% margin either way, whether market's up or market down. That's one of the greatest advantage of being a broker versus being a carrier, right? When rates go down, it directly comes off the carrier's bottom line. Okay. When rates go down, it doesn't always, from a 1-to-1 ratio, it doesn't decrease a broker's profit. Their profit might go from 15% to 13%, but it's not going to go from 15% to 0. Okay. So thank you, Colby. Appreciate it. Just scrolling, looking through some questions, so hold tight. Matthew, cold calling is my nemesis, so I have been focused on making LinkedIn connections via messaging. I also live in wine country, Oregon, so I have been emailing local wineries to make connections while I work on making connections. What things should I be focused on to get ready for my first shipper? Well, I don't know if you're a broker. I don't know if you're an agent. So those are different, right? So I'm not really sure there. Assuming that you are either, if you have a specific niche and a specific geography that you're focused in on, you can also start spending maybe 10% of your time sourcing carriers and understanding rates in and out of that market. So if you're going to be focused on inbound or outbound Oregon, which is kind of what it sounds like, then it's pretty easy for you to identify who carriers are that are coming in and out and what the rates are. The next thing you're going to have to understand is the rates. You're going to need to be able to effectively quote and be competitive. Now, competitive doesn't mean the cheapest. It just means competitive, right? So that's an area that you're probably going to want to focus in on. All right. That's probably one of the most important areas you're going to want to focus in on, in addition to obviously starting conversations with shippers. So good start. Good question, Matthew. Thank you. Okay, so listen, if anybody's interested in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator online course, the self-paced version, send an email to support@freightbrokerbootcamp.com and put Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, and then put a message in there that Dennis told me to message you about the online course. We'll have a quick conversation, and maybe it's something that I can help you with. Okay. Okay, question from Ibrahim. I currently pay $1,600 in insurance for this one customer equipment share, but I make about $4,000 from them monthly. Do you think it's worth it? You're not asking me that question. I mean, you're making $2,400. I think $1,600 is a lot for insurance. Okay, especially if it's $1,600 a month. Okay, if it's $1,600 a month, then that's a lot for insurance. If it's $1,600 a year, then it's a no-brainer. But either way, you're netting $2,400 on that deal. So I think it's worth it. What you should focus on is reducing your insurance costs and increasing your volume, which will increase your margin. And I'm sure that's what you're doing. But ultimately, you made a strategic decision, which I applaud you for, to get the insurance that was required for a specific customer that allowed you to generate $4,000 a month in profit. So I think it's worth it. I don't know. Maybe the group can chime in and tell us if they think it's worth it. Invest $1,600, make $2,400 a month. Would you take, if you had an investment that you could put it into and predictably turn $1,600 into $2,400 in profit? Okay, after your $1,600, meaning, right? Imagine that. I think you'd probably be all over it. Okay, guys, if there's any other questions, we're going to wrap it up. If there's no other questions, we're going to wrap it up. Again, for those of you that are curious about just getting started and need startup help as a freight broker or freight agent, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee on that startup program. You can get all the details there. You could get enrolled in 2 minutes, get an email and get logged in 1 minute later, and you have access to the training 24/7, 365. Okay. Now, if you need help with getting clients, getting shippers, you need specific freight broker sales help. This is not generic help. This is just focused heavily on just getting clients. Get on the wait list for the next Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Again, it's sold out right now. You can't get enrolled. And it sells out every time, but I will reopen it. And if you're on the wait list, you'll get notified. If you're not on the wait list, you won't get notified. Okay. It's free to be on the wait list. The program's not free and it's not cheap. Okay. So, question from Armin. I'm curious if you could recommend any companies for partnering with on taking on freight agency. Also, what main things we should take into consideration regarding the key terms. Okay, so let me just see something really quick. I think I can help you. Okay, so here is hold on a minute. Okay, sorry about that. We should be back with the microphone. So I just added this in the chat box, 17 questions I asked before joining a freight agent company. Click on the link. You'll be able to download a cheat sheet with all the questions. Okay, that's the last part of your question. As far as a specific agent program, I don't get into job placements. I don't get into doing recommendations of agent programs because, agent programs, sometimes they're hiring, sometimes they're not hiring, sometimes they're looking for people with experience, sometimes they're not. But I do have, if you go to my YouTube channel, then I do have a training on there, how to get hired as a freight agent with no experience. You can go through that, use the step-by-step guide. And I think it's even downloadable, but yeah, you can follow that instruction. And again, it's just not that hard to get hired as a freight agent. Okay. If you can't get hired as a freight agent, okay, I'm going to give you some tough love before we go. If you can't get hired as a freight agent by identifying some agent programs that fit you, small to medium, not the large companies. If you don't have experience, you don't have a book, you're not going to go to the large companies, you're going to go to the smaller companies. If you can't identify those people and you can't pick up the phone and contact them and sell yourself into a straight commission, zero risk proposition with that broker, you're not going to succeed as a broker. So find something else to do. I'm not saying this to you personally. I'm saying this in general to the market. Everybody whines about the fact that, they don't hire agents unless you got a book of business. Bullshit. That's total bullshit. Okay. The companies you're going after, the ones that are advertising on Indeed and Jobs and Logistics and all the big companies, my old company, Logistic Dynamics, LDI, no, they're not going to hire you unless you have a book of business. But there are thousands of brokers out there that are looking to grow from $1 million to $2 million to $5 million to $10 million, that are looking to grow, that would love to work with somebody on straight commission because they can't afford to hire somebody and pay them a $50,000 or $70,000 salary to go out and prospect. So you bring them clients, you guys share revenue. You don't bring them clients, it costs them zero. Okay? Hope that helps. Sorry, but that's a very fiery topic. I get a little fiery when it comes to that. But listen, great questions, guys. Really appreciate you guys being here. Another great session. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, no matter where you're at, the price of admission today, hit the like button and share the stream. If you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on LinkedIn, share the stream. Do me a favor. Most of my clients hear from us through word of mouth. I truly appreciate you guys being here. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. And I'll see you next Monday on the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Thanks all.